This week was swingiest by far, and it ended up on the biggest pot of the challenge by far, $800 on NL100. So we started the week at $1,320 playing NL100. And I realized that when I move up in stakes, that mistakes get pricier and pricier. But let's get into the action. So I open ace queen offsuit from cutoff. I get one caller from button, Recreational, and another one from ante. I don't know what kind of player that is, but it's irrelevant because he folds the flop after I bet like 75%. The turn is 5, and I still think we have the best hand most of the time, so I bet big against Recreational because big hand, big bet, simple as that. But now, when he raises the turn, in my experience, when recreational players raise the turn after calling the flop, their range is very, very value heavy. So actually, this is like snap fold spot. And I don't think that I thought for a very long time before flicking in the fold. And as per usual, I like to buy in the showdown, and we get the good and the bad news. He turned set of 5, so my read here was right. All right, this felt thin on the river. So, tie player opens from +1, recreational calls from the button. We have the mamacitas on a small blind, so obviously we squeeze quite big. Only the tie player calls, and the flop is 8-9 jack. I'm not loving the flop, so I decide to actually bet like third pot, and the reasoning being that I think that if he were to have a set or a two pair, well, there's little two pairs there, but set, I think that he would actually raise most of the time that flop, and I would actually consider folding already. But he decides to flick in the call, so I am thinking to value bet like half pot, because most of the time I think we have the best hand here. We can get still calls from tens, jack X, hands like that. And when the river is 4 of hearts, this is actually the decision point. Do we have enough value to ship it here? There's like 60-ish% of the pot left. On a game, this already felt thin against a tight racket kind of guy. But anyhow, I decided to ship it in, even though I wasn't loving it. But I thought that I'm leaving money on the table if I just check it. And obviously, when he snaps it off, he has the top set there. So, what do you guys think? Is that no-brainer shove on the river, or how would you have played it? Next hand, we got pocket jacks on cutoff. I open, and aggro rec from Straddle 3-bets us. Here we can do anything but fold, so I can call or 4-bet. This time I decided to 4-bet, and obviously I'm calling if he shoves. I'm not loving my life, but he was so aggro that I think that's mandatory. He decides to call, and the flop comes ace high. Now he decides to donk for 1/3 or so. Not great, but what can we do? Of course we could fold. But in my opinion, most of the time when recreationals donk small, it's garbage or draw or some sort of like 10x, for example, here. But when he checks the turn, I don't see any reason on betting, or maybe we could bet for protection or something like that. But well, I think that this line is better, and let's see what happens on the river. He ships it in, and I trust my read, and pair of jacks beats king high. All right, next hand. I open queen 7 of spades from small blind and get 2 calls from recreationals. I flop middle pair, check it, and next guy bets like 1/3, another guy snaps. which could be draw. And now the guy leads 1/3 again. And again, snap called from the other guy. We get so great price that we can't do anything but flick in the call. The river comes another jack. We check. And the guy who has been keeping the lead decides to check as well. And the last guy insta ships it in. I don't like it because even though it's like blind versus blind and they are recreationals and there was a lot of draws on flop, mainly the flush draw, but still it's multi-way and I'm not sure at all whether that was right call or not. Of course, if I would have been right, I would have been like, yeah, easy call. What do you think? This is a bomb pot that comes 3 hearts on a flop. We are having the ace of hearts as the nut blocker. We bet villain leads 50% on a turn and 25% on the river. To be honest, I'm not sure whether we have the best hand here or not. I have a feeling that we most probably don't have, but since we have the nut flush blocker, I decided to go to the good old nut blocker bluff. So I ship it into his face, feeling confident about my read that he does not have hand good enough to call. And he goes into tank, and let's see what happens. He flicks in the call, unfortunately, with king 10 offsuit. I guess there were 2 guys playing not so well on that hand. Alright, I'm not gonna lie. This next one tilted me and I had to close the client in game. So I call under the gun open with 10 queens suited. I'm calling here because there are a lot of recreationals behind me and I don't mind seeing flop with that kind of hand. I could obviously 3-bet as well, but this time I decided to just call. The flop comes 5, 3, 6 with 2 hearts, so we have 2 overs and a flush draw. When it gets checked to me, I bet like half pot to get value from possibly worse draws and whatever. We have a lot of equity. The guy next to me raises like 3x and everyone else folds. Well, obviously we are not going anywhere just yet, so I flick in the call. I don't see merit in raising either because the guy raised into several people, so I'm thinking that he actually likes his hand. The turn brings the 6 of spades. If he had set or 2 pair, he most likely has both now. But when he doesn't bet, I'm thinking that he was probably drawing or doesn't have a boat. Because I think most of the time players just keep betting for value there. But I would at least. Well, on the river we get the jack of hearts, so we make the flush, but I decide to check it to the raiser and he thinks for quite some time before shipping it in. And in game I just snap called it off. And that was the reason I was so tilted, because I really should have thought that, okay, if he doesn't have a boat, does he really shove worse flush? Alright, next one will be one of the bigger pots. I just checked my option from the straddle after a couple limps and flop the nuts with 5-6. And now one villain bets, another one calls, and I decide to raise it up because I want to get as much money in as possible. One guy calls and the flop turn is king, so nothing changes. Here I overbet like 1.3 times the pot to get as much money in from draws as possible. And on the river, nothing we can do but ship it in and let's see if we can get a call. And we do from flopped set. This was the biggest pot so far of the challenge. We have pocket kings, Recreational opens from under the gun, another one calls. So obviously we are 3-betting here. And praying for 4-bet or at least some calls. And now the first guy opening thinks and ships it in for 92 big blinds. And another guy just flats, or just flats, like half buy-in, which is, I tend to think that he could have something like tens, jacks, ace, queen, maybe something like that. So I just decided to get the money in, because I'm thinking that he's not likely to fold, like for example pocket jacks or something like that here, because he's very loose recreational. So I just ship it in and pray for a call. And beautiful news, they both have kings, so pretty close of a drawing dead. I think that they could have some flush outs, but maybe like 2% per person. So there was over 1,000 big blind spot. So it was, what, $600 or something like that. Nice spot anyway. The next one was even bigger. So I open 10 jacks suited from +1. I get 1 call from Aggro Recreational. And then I get 3-bet from a villain that was a little bit on more aggro side, not like Maniac, but not tight either. And obviously I call with 10 jack suited, so does the Recreational. We flop straight draw and flush draw. So on top of my head, I think we have about 12 outs. So we aren't going anywhere. But I don't want to raise either, because I want to keep the another guy in as well. Well, turn brings us the nuts. We check to the 3-better, thinking that this board is very, very good for his raise. But unfortunately, he decides to check it back. Now we have to think, how can we get the max value out? I actually think that this flop is so good for him that he has lots 2-pair sets and so on. So I decide to bet 3 times the pot, and we get basically snapped with ace queen offsuit. And here, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest pot of the challenge. So I open pocket rockets, reg kind of guy 3-bets from the button, and total maniac recreational calls. I 4-bet and the recreational snaps it off. There's like 200 bigs on the pot now, and I'm thinking, what is the best way to get money in? Should I bet big? Should I bet small to induce? I decide to bet on a smaller side, a little bit over 1/3, to actually induce a raise from the recreational. And that is exactly what he does. I don't see any merit actually here in raising, because if he's bluffing, well, he's not calling. And if he's bluffing, let him do that all the way. Or if he's value raising, some worse, let him do that. Or if he has queens or 4x, then he will get my money. So I call, and the turn is king. And now he insta ships it in, and we insta snap, call it off. And he has queen 10. So I guess he was thinking that he was value raising it. Oh, I'm sure of it. But 1,300 big blinds on a 2-4-8 Chinese Yuan game. Biggest bot of the challenge so far. Everyday life. But to the results. The results, I want to talk about wins or losses and their effect on everyday life or your mood. But if you don't want to hear any of that nonsense, here are the results. So we started this week at $1,320 playing NL100. We lost quite a bunch in 2 first days. We went down to $470 and very close to have to move down to NL40. But then the sun run began.
And we ended the week after playing 22 hours. The roll is now at $2,253, which means that we can go up to NL200.
So it has been a rough couple of days. I've been just losing. I've been losing from $1,320 to $470. So I'm right on the edge of have to move down to NL40. Which brings us to the subjects I want to talk about. The effect of winnings and losings to your everyday life or your like mood. So if you are not recreational player, if you are taking poker seriously, you are studying, trying to get better at poker. How does winning amount that affects your life somehow? Or let's say 10 buy-ins in the levels you play, or weekly or monthly salary in the country you are living in. We're talking about money of that ballpark. So, and for my personal experience, if I'm winning, I feel good, or my mood could be a little better. But on the other hand, if I'm losing those big amounts, it feels really, really bad. Like dozen times worse than winning the same amount. Sometimes I feel like almost my winnings or my losses at poker dictates who I am. And it definitely shouldn't be like that, because of course there's always the luck. There's always the luck element in poker. So you could be playing as good as you can and still losing money. Should you be mad at yourself for playing good? Duh, of course not. And on the other hand, even if you were to make mistakes, we are humans, and we make mistakes. That's part of humanity, right? And even if you would have made mistakes at poker table, oftentimes they are quite small mistakes. Let's say you lost the 200 big blind pot. Your mistake could be only like a couple big blinds or one big blind. Of course, that's in GTO land. So actually, your mistake in GTO land could actually be the right play against the player you played it against. On the other hand, it also could be bigger mistake than in GTO land. But what I'm trying to say here is that don't be so harsh on yourself. Don't let poker results dictate who you are. Thanks for watching. Bye.